Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you're watching Season 3 of Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsors, Mixon Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixon is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixon is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now, you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns, a bunch of them you've even heard about on this very show. And they currently offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK, and makes them can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to mixem.com. And right now they are running a promotion where listeners of my show can get 5% off their order by dropping my name, Andrew Davis, in a message tab. So that is mixam.com. Type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get a 5% discount on your first order. Also, BCW Supplies has a promo code with me under Pop Anime Comics to get 10% off your order. And bags, boards, and long boxes are expensive, so please use that code. And my Kickstarter is up and running, so feel free to check that out. And without further ado, I have with me returning guests, I think for the third or fourth time, Tom Hutchison. So welcome back to the show.
It's at least three. It's at least three. It's probably 4 or 5, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not counting the comic hangouts as official episodes. So
Oh no.
But it's at least, if you're counting those, it's at least 4, and this is either the 4th or the 5th time minimum. So obviously, I enjoy having you back because I've been reading Big Dog Inc. on and off, and I've been backing a lot of your Kickstarters. I did get that Oz book. I don't know what number you sent me. Do you know what number you sent me?
One you just got recently?
Yeah. Did you know?
Yeah, so that would have been Legend of Oz. Well, in Kickstarter speak, it's Legend of Oz, Age of Ozma Part 2. But in the larger scheme, it is issue 22 and 23 of the long form numbering that we have for the series.
So I actually got. I'm actually waiting to get the third. I'm going to read all of them all at once, and that's why I'm like so excited, and that's why I'm like dying for you just to send it to me because I like reading it all in one shot because like I want to read something continuously. But I actually did get that $50 Chrome, I think like Scarecrow cover, and it's a limited 50, and you sent me number 13 out of the bunch, which I just think is funny, which really means I'm screwed. So there we go. So I don't know if that's intentional or not.
Sure, you'll be fine. It's fine.
but we're not talking about Oz.
It's not like tarot cards, you're fine.
We're not talking about Oz today, as much as I love Oz, and you should go back every Oz book Tom does, because you have one of my favorite interpretations of Oz, and the other one I haven't written yet. So I'm going to love my work more than anybody else's. But I digress right there, because I do want to talk about what's going on with you right now, because it is super interesting. And you have a Critter action figure that is 67% funded on Kickstarter. You're like 22, almost 23,000 out of 35,000. I think you got like,
we've rolled over 23,000 today, so we're almost at 23.5. We got our 200th backer today, and basically we've just done 1 week, so we're literally 2 hours into week 2 right now. So we had a really great, astonishingly good first week. I've done lots of, we talked about this before we came on. I've done a lot of campaigns, but they've all been comics. They've never been like merch or swag or anything like this. So I really didn't know what to expect as far as like an initial start, like what's the first week going to look like? What is week 2 going to look like? Because we all know those middle 2 weeks are usually garbage. Like, how is this all going to play out? But we had a really great start. We need 35,000 for the campaign, but we're already at 23 plus. So we're rolling. It's going really well. I feel really good about it.
Yeah, this is something that I definitely want to talk about, and I want to dive into the action figure stuff, but I do want to just briefly catch everybody up on what is Critter, because Critter is not just an action figure.
Correct.
Critter is a superhero. It's a comic, and there's a lot of source material before the action figure. And
absolutely.
People in my audience, some of them obviously know who Critter is, and some people are hearing about Critter for the first time. So what is
Yeah.
the basic definition and sort of premise of Critter? Because she is about 12, 13 years old now.
Yeah. So yeah, we started with Penny for Your Soul in 2010, but in the same year, the summer of 2010, we launched the first Critter book. So she's been published now for in publication for 12 years. Basically, it's old school superhero stuff. When I started writing comics, I didn't know what I was doing. So basically, I created her in the back of business class. I was bored with school, and I was drawing because I wanted to be an artist originally. So as I was drawing things like the X-Men and whatever, I got tired of drawing them over and again. So I created Critter for the purpose of teaching myself how to draw. Over the years, I realized that's just not going to happen. It's just not. I don't have the time of my life to put into this because I was running a comic book store and doing a lot of other stuff. And so eventually, though, I fell back on the idea of, okay, what if I wrote a comic book? Because I could write it, hire an artist. I had my 9-to-5 job at the time. And I was like, yeah, but I could just have fun with it. I could go to the local cons, just sell some comics, just total side projects. So for me, I grew up with superheroes, in the 70s and 80s when I started reading comics. So it was a natural thing for me to just fall back onto, I'm going to write a superhero because I feel like I understand the genre as a whole through the 70s, the 80s. Again, 2000s, 90s, and 2000s, I was running and owning my own shop. So I was deep in comics, especially superhero stuff. So Critter, you can see she's right here. It's old school superhero stuff. It's the fantasy sort of, latex costumes, whatever you want to call them. There's no concern for me about the reality of this stuff. It is pure fantasy. Basically, a country girl gets recruited by a team out on the West Coast. Here's one of the members on this side. There's another one right there. She finds out that her mom was a superhero previously with this team. That's where the ears and the tail come from. Those belong to her mom. So she kind of adopts them as part of her superhero persona to honor her mother. Moves out to California, finds out that being a real superhero is a lot harder than it was back home. It's not about pulling, tractors out of mud and kittens out of trees. It's real bad guys. It's real problems. The bad guys, the bad stuff escalates very quickly. The first miniseries, she finds out that there is a time traveler. His name is Paradox. That's all this white electricity stuff. There's another piece to this puzzle that's not here. Paradox is a time traveler who basically has come
later on. It's coming, I promise.
Yeah, no, right, exactly. He's a time traveler that's come back in time to sort of watch Critter progress. Like she has this theoretical destiny that he knows about from the future that she doesn't, and he's come back to kind of be like a watcher style character. Like he's there to kind of push in certain directions, but not really do too much. So there's a lot of superhero, there's a lot of science fiction. It's just a lot of fun is what it is. And we have now 12 years worth of books. It's something like 30 different issues between her series, all the different spin-off books that we've done. And now unbelievably, we have the opportunity to put a figure out that, should this go off well, it could open the doors to create an entire line for Big Dog Inc.
Yeah, and the only reason why I wanted to mention all this is that obviously there's a lot of history. There's I think 25, regular issues through a bunch of different things. Big Dog Inc. I think went through Aspen, obviously back to Big Dog Inc. and then spin-off stuff, and then a bunch of other stuff. And now this is kind of why I wanted to bring us right into the action figure. Is that that's a big deal because obviously we look at Marvel, DC, and other companies. There's action figures. The Walking Dead's a good example. But an indie company getting an action figure, the only other person I can think of, and he was just on my show, was Larry Welts with Cherry, which is up on Kickstarter right now as well. And so how did all of this come about? Because that's what I think people really want to know. And we're not going through the history of Critter. I promise everybody. There's more than enough history that you should just go read it. Because reading it will be a hell of a lot better than me asking questions about it. I promise.
Yeah. And the Kickstarter has the comics on it. So if you haven't read the books before, it's very easy to just grab the volumes right there. And you can get the comics, you can get the toy. There's some other swag. There's like some metal cards and stuff. So there's all kinds of stuff on the campaign besides just the toy as well. Even if you want it digitally, there's a way to just get the entire library digitally, and just dive into the whole thing. So yeah, there is that.
About that, because this is one of the things that obviously I just ran my first Kickstarter and I got funded, and I've learned beyond anything that I wanted to learn at this point. And I think the first one you always learn is you have a lot of tiers for every level, where you could buy something for 25 or you go all the way up to 150.
Sure.
And people right now are at different economic levels.
Sure.
People also at different, levels of saying, I never heard of Critter. This looks cool, but I don't want to I don't want to jump into the pool, for instance, but I don't mind buying in for $25.
Sure.
That's a different risk level. And also, so you might say, I've never read Critter, but I heard of it and I'm into, Penny for My Soul. Let me actually now get the chance to buy it. And so I think that's very, very smart, because it allows for a lot of different experiences because somebody might not be an action figure fan, for instance.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. And we've seen that on the campaign. There are people that are just here buying the comics. And in most of those cases, I can tell you, those kind of have to be new buyers, because the people that I've had on previous campaigns would have already had the books, or if they're people that knew me just over the years, probably already have the books. So the people that are coming in and buying the comics now are probably 90% new buyers, which is fantastic. Welcome, to Critter. I mean, I'm not going to expect everybody to buy a toy. I'm not going to expect every toy buyer to buy a comic. So the more diversified you can have in your rewards, people collect a lot of different stuff. Some people just collect trading cards. We have trading cards on there. So yeah, the more diverse you can have of your reward tiers, the better off you'll be. We have art prints. If you guys like art prints, you want to put art on the wall, we got art prints too. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
So that's something that I'm learning. And obviously on my Kickstarter, I have a metal card that I'm moving out, because specifically people collect different things, as you stated.
Sure.
That people want certain things, and I like metal cards, so that's why I did that.
Yeah.
And I don't mind taking $100 loss for something I want. So I don't mind doing that, and it has other purposes as well. But anyway, getting back to the action figure, like, how did all of this come about? Because it's
so this is actually a longer story than it probably should be. But many years ago, there's a company called Loose Collector that I stumbled across somewhere, and basically they were doing at the time custom figures. So you would give them a figure of some kind, and they would sort of repaint it and do a little sculpting and make it be whatever you wanted it to be. Right. And in particular, a lot of people were doing that because there are not really much in the way of indie figures. So if they wanted an indie figure, they kind of had to get a custom made of it. Right. So I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I'd love to just have a Critter figure, just to put on the shelf, maybe take it to cons and just have a little bit of fun. And so I said, can you get one of those McFarlane Abby Chase figures from Danger Girl and turn that into Critter? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So many moons ago, they did this figure for me. And it came in and I was like, holy shit, this looks awesome. Oh my God. And it would travel around to the shows with me, and people would look at me, well, when are we get one? I'm like, well, you're not going to get one because it's the only one in existence. I talked to Loose Collector. I was like, well, maybe we'll do another one. We can kind of put all the figures out, whatever. Many years later, Loose Collector, one of the guys from there, and in conjunction with Executive Replicas, they came back to me and said, hey, is it time to do real toys now? Not just customs. Is it time to do something real? And I was like, God damn right, it's time to do something real. So we talked about it, and I was like, I feel like we should do something simple and easy as far as a sculpt, as far as accessories, as far as everything, something that we could potentially do 2 versions of that wouldn't require extra sculpting. And they were like, yep, that all makes sense. And I was like, let's do Critter. Here's the image. Here's the 2 versions. Very simple, just paint schemes, a little darker blue, a little bit change on the design. They're like, yeah, this makes total sense. We'll do like fists. We'll do like claw hands so they can have different hands. I was like, brilliant. This is great. And they fired it up. They launched the little 3D program that they have and sculpted it in the 3D program so that we could kind of go step by step and make sure all of that was going to be right before they did an actual printed, final prototype. And they were great about it. They were like, is this right? Is this right? Is this right? I was like, okay, fix, tweak this, that, whatever. And this was like last spring, maybe April, something like that, April, May, something like that. And by November, by October, they had the finished piece in their hands, because they're over in China doing their thing. They had the finished piece in their hands that they could take pictures of. And they sent the pictures over all painted and everything. And my jaw just hit the floor. I was like, oh my God, you have to be kidding me how incredible this looks. So they took pictures, and then they did a repaint to get that modern blue, this is kind of the modern blue version. And they sent me that, and I was like, God, we're really going to do this. We're really legitimately going to do this. And we put the campaign together in December, January, and we just launched it last Saturday, as we say. And so, we're already at 23,000, over 23,000, 200 backers. And we just added some stuff today to the campaign. There's an art book. We've never done an art book for Critter before. So we've done an art book now that has a brand new cover by Bill McKay. There's a standard version, there's a holofoil version, and then there's a version printed on metal. So there's 3 versions of the book that you can get and add on, or you can just make it your pledge. Again, like we talked about, if you just want the art book, come in and pledge for the art book. You can just get that all by itself. But if you have pledged for something else, the toys or whatever, you can add that art book on as well. So, yeah, that's basically where we're at. And Winston over at Executive Collectibles, and I'm told David is the guy who did the sculpt. I didn't get a last name, but he told me it's David, and I'm like, okay, it's David. So David, great job, David. And Winston, and they're like, yeah. So what's next? I'm like, yo, let's get one done, and then we'll figure out what's next. But yeah, they're ready to go. They were really pleased with it when they saw the figure. They were like, yo, this is good. Let's do some more. So I'm like, yeah, okay, great. I appreciate that. I love that you guys are enthusiastic too, because that just makes it better.
So to even go further into this, because one of the things that is super cool is that, obviously this is a toy, it's a collectible, it's got, it's posable, which is very cool. So you could actually move Critter around, you could change out hands. And so it's not anymore just a thing that you put on your shelf. I mean, I'm assuming you don't really care. Somebody's like, hey, I just want to look at it in the box and keep it mint. I'm pretty sure you're happy about that too, but it's also playable. And
sure,
that's something that's not a piece of art anymore. And so what is that like? Because that's also a really nice touch. Whether somebody does that or not is up to them, but it makes it kind of like, I remember playing with action figures, getting my Dragon Ball Z action figures. You rip it open and then you can move like Goku's arms around. They're like, you get, your Yu Hakusho or your WWE action figures. Like, I have a bunch of those things still around. And like every once in a while, I'll go in my basement and find them, and you could like move their things around. And this is remnant of that in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've had every level of this. I've had people who bought one figure and they're like, dude, I can't wait to open it. I have people that bought both figures, because you can get both figures in one pledge, and they're like, yo, I can't wait to open it. Then I've got guys that have bought one or both, and they're like, I'm never opening these, but I'm going to put them on my shelf. And I've got the guys that have bought more than one set so that they can open one set and keep one set closed. So it's run the gambit already. We've already had every possible incarnation of buyers on this, which is great, and here's the thing, is that this is a situation where these toys are going to be very limited. So if you're buying even one set, I mean, there's only basically 500 of each figure. That's nothing in the grand scheme of toy making. And once we have them and when they're in our hands, even if they don't sell out on the campaign, they're going to go to cons and they're going to be gone in a hurry. So when these things are gone, that's it. We're not just going to go back to print and make more. I mean, that's literally it. We might make other Critter figures. She has other costumes. There's different versions of her and so on. But as far as these actual figures, that's it. When they're gone, they're gone. So yeah, don't, if you are a toy collector, if you're a Big Dog Inc. fan, if you are any combination of those things, I mean, this is a really special opportunity and
So
this particular figure won't come back again.
let's even talk about that with exclusivity, because one of the things that I like about you, and it makes me a Zenescope fan, and even with toy collecting, is I want something that's super limited. So I
Mhm.
want a 250 print run, I want a 500 print run, I want a 100 print run, because it's two things. It's a value, it's knowing that it's not going to be reprinted, and it's also when I have an exclusive item and there's only 100 of them, I know somebody else has that item too, and it becomes a very much like a club mentality.
Oh, sure.
And so, what is that like? Because I think that's also a selling point at this point, where want exclusivity, and I think it's really smart because it does limit money to some degree, but it also adds money because it creates value.
It creates value in the long term. It creates demand for future products, because the people that don't get this one, they'll, if they see it, they'll become aware that Big Dog Inc. is doing toys, and they'll be like, oh, well, okay, what's the next one? It's like when I mean, really, almost all toys now. There's no Toys R Us anymore, guys. There's no KB Toys. Almost all toys now are made to some limited extent. Now, in some cases, limited extent means 10,000 units. That's a lot of units, but you can sell way more Friday the 13th units than you can Critter units. That's just reality. So they make 10,000, 20,000 units because they're going to Walmart and all these places. But in the case of like these things, you're not going to see probably more than about 1,000 units being made, and that's just because that's how many people there are going to. The demand is going to be about 1,000, and you're going to be done, and then you have to grow that. So then, as people see it, oh my God, what is that? I've never seen it before. How do I get my own? Oh shit, they're on eBay. They're $500 now. What happened? Oh, Big Dog Inc. has another one. Well, I don't want to spend $500 on that one, so I'm going to go, grab the next figure. So, as I've done these interviews and talked about this, it changes being able to do something like this in this scale of things, because there's lots of people that have figures. They do a lot of little 3D figures, 3D miniatures, and so on. There's lots that's almost easy to do. It still costs money, but it's much easier to do than a 30-point articulation, fully sculpted thing. So when we get to do something like this, it changes the perception, not just of Critter, but of everything that we do at Big Dog Inc.
Yeah, it gives you credibility. It gives you, I think,
Oddly enough, yes. Oddly enough, yes. Like the product of the comics should be enough, right? But the reality is that in this collectible world, you need to have a pop, or you need to have a figure, or you need to have a statue, or just something beyond the comics. It's almost as if making comics is easy. Oh, anybody can make a comic. Where's your toys, man? Okay, there's our toys.
It's weird where I get respect in certain areas, and it's because I've done certain things. And then like when I do an interview and somebody's like, "Oh, you've done person A, B, C," you get respect. And I'm like, I've done 400 interviews before this. Like I don't have respect
Yeah,
then. So it's like a
yeah.
weird dichotomy. And like, but I think that what's also happening is that it draws attention, and I think people are
Sure.
like, you're stepping outside the box of comics.
Sure.
Because I hate to say this, and I'm curious your opinion, where comics is a weird area where people are like, it's not real writing, it's not real art, and like people have this weird conception on comics. And I personally don't think that. I think comics is some of the best art. I think it's some of the best writing, but there is a sort of negative position on it. And now that all of a sudden you're doing a toy, people are like, wow, Big Dog Inc. is doing something that's a toy, and they're a comic company. And then at some point, there might be a licensed television show, and now you're becoming a multimedia company.
Attention Hollywood. Attention Hollywood.
Like people have respect for that, I feel, because they're like,
Oh,
oh,
sure.
you're not comics anymore.
Well, it's not that it's not about not that you don't do comics anymore. It's just you have now made yourself relevant because you're part of their media understanding. If you have a Netflix show, they understand what Netflix is. It's like, okay, you're on Netflix. I guess I can watch your show because I have Netflix. You're a toy company. Oh, okay. I like toys, so now I can buy your toy. So you expand the boundaries of the IP, the IP being Critter. You expand the boundaries of the IP, which then expands the boundaries of the company itself, because now it's like, oh, Critter. Okay, but what else do you got? Dorothy Gale, Joan of Arc, Ursa Minor or whatever. And then again, now it's like, well, you've gone from superheroes to horror to fantasy to science fiction, and you just keep going and going and going. And the more that you do, the more it's like we talked about the Venn diagram, the more you can interact with other types of communities who, toy communities, whatever. It just expands the IP in all directions. So yeah. So being able to put toys like legitimately here, it's going to come in a box and the whole thing. Here it is. It's in the box. There's the box right there. Being able to say here it is. It's in the box. It's not a blister card either. It's like you can open it and close it so you can put it back in. Here's the box. It's going to look great on the con floor. And then as people come in, they're like, oh, yo, you're doing toys. That's awesome. And then we can say, yeah, it's also a comic over here with, 30 issues plus that you can buy into. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I also think it's just like very much a showstopper, and even just showing the action figure, this is, I think, the classic blue. This is then also the modern blue. Mm-hmm. And this is some more photos of it. I think this is the classic blue. Mm-hmm. I think this is more classic blue, and then this is modern. Mm-hmm. And this is modern, but I'm not too sire who she's fighting in that one. But
yeah, they just found a toy sitting in their closet, and they're like, yeah, Critter could kick that guy.
I don't know if I'm legally allowed to show that.
Oh yeah, you can. That's photography that they sent us, so it's all good.
I just don't want to be sued today. That's tomorrow's activity.
Critter's better than whoever that guy is. I don't know what that guy is, but Critter's better.
And then obviously even going further into this, because if you buy the set, and I know the set of the two, mm-hmm. You're not saving any money as far as, because each one I think is $75 a piece, but what you are getting is this bad boy, yep. And this is by Keith Garvey.
Yep. And yeah. So there's a 2-pack tier right at the top. It's just a 2-pack tier. You can click on it. You'll get both figures. Again, free shipping. It's shipping's included in what you're doing. And if you're buying the 2-pack tier, you're going to get that cover for free as well. So that'll be printed on a Critter #1. So it'll be reprinting the first issue. That way, anybody that's new to Critter will be able to read issue 1 and kind of get a sense of, okay, I get what Critter is. And then, again, there's only 200 of those. That's it. So while we're making 500 total figures of each of these versions, there's only 200 2-packs, and we're already halfway through.
A piece of advice: if you get the 2-pack, you don't open this book up. I'm just going to be very nice about it. You go and you buy a beat-up copy of Critter 1 instead. You will thank me, because this book will pay for at least 1/3 at some point of your 2 action figures. And if you're like me, that's what you're going to do. Now, you can do whatever you want, everybody. I'm just saying, a limited 200 book, and then when Critter becomes a television show, this is the one. I'm just saying, heed my advice now. You'll thank me later.
That's going to be one of those that disappear. There's, it's interesting as you sell variants and stuff over the years, you kind of figure out like which ones have really latched on with people, which ones kind of are like, yeah, I like that one. And then there's others that they're a little more readily available. A lot of it depends on the artist, obviously, if you get a Scott Campbell cover versus, somebody you've never heard of, the Scott Campbell collectors will gobble that up. But there are definitely covers for Critter and other ones that just have disappeared into collections.
So I sell comics on eBay and you sell comics on eBay. I know that I make good exits on comics, but I say to my mom, I'm sad because I will never see this book again.
Yeah, sometimes that's true. Or you will, but it'll be really, really expensive.
And look, I just sold a Clayton Crane book that I bought for $20 for $160. That's with a 14-month hold time, which is a pretty great return. And I was sad to see it go, but the money went into stocks and it's producing dividends, and I'm thrilled about it. But it's the idea that I was explaining to my mom, I will never see this book again, and I understand that. Now, I have it up on my Instagram. I can always look at the photo. I have photos of it. It's cool, but it served its purpose, and it's time to go to another home. But then there's certain books that I won't sell because I know for a certainty that I won't see it. And that just makes me sad. So it's
that goes back to a lot of, what we talked about, like the limited edition stuff, with what we do, the most we ever really have had of these variant covers over the years is like, I think 300 maybe. There might have been a couple that we did 500 of for some bigger shows, but even those are gone. Like the Mike DeBalfo cover we did for Penny for Your Soul #3, I think it was 3, might have been 4, for New York, our first New York Comic Con. I think we did 500 of those, and that's a book that just doesn't appear. I mean, it just does not show up anywhere for sale. So this is going to be one of those books that this Keith Garvey cover, that when people get it, it's well, one of two things is going to happen. One, they're going to try and flip it to make their money back so that their critter figures were free, which makes complete sense. I totally understand. Or it's just going to go into collections and it's never going to come out.
It's gonna, or what'll happen is that, so there's a book that I got, I love, my favorite cover from Zenescope is Firefighter Sexy Samantha. It's an Elias Chazu's book. And when the book first came out, it didn't appear on eBay for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it took 5 years for them to appear. And I think there's only like 5 of them up on eBay.
Yeah.
So it's a book that is very, very well protected in people's collection. And there might be only 250, maybe 300 of them. But it's one of those books that comes up, but it took 5 years for about 7 or 8 of them to come up. Then when those came up, 3 or 4 of them sold out really quickly. And then the others are now sticking around. And then Zenescope released a metal of it. But even that metal book doesn't come up. And that metal book's like a year and a half old. So it's one of those harbored books.
Well, it's like we had Shannon Mayer's first ever cover. I mean, his first ever comic book cover was us, Legend of Oz #5. And for a long time, it was a very sought after cover. But once he became like a star, when he was doing Marvel and DC stuff out of the blue, and people were like, yeah, I want to get some of that Shannon Mayer stuff. And they realized that our cover was his first. That cover astronomically exploded. And when you see one now, they're at least a couple $100, if not more. And if they're graded, they go even higher. So, there's definitely, certain moments in time that, just stay the way they are. And that Garvey one's going to be one of them. It's going to be one that gets missed. People aren't going to know what it was or where it came from. And it's going to show up on somewhere sometime, and people will be like, yo, where did it come from?
Yeah. So it's just one of those things. And I know exactly. I mean, Zenescope has some statues, and I tell this story where they included 2 free books. You could get all 3 statues for $150 with 2 free books. I sold those 2 free books that they gave me for about $250. So I made money on it and got my statues for free. And but those books are a 125 and a 75 print run. And this is just that. I mean, and I'm openly going to say that I know for a fact that book is at least $100 book, if not
Easily.
Day one, when you get it in the mail, I'm going to be very shocked if I don't see at least 10 of them up on eBay. I'm just saying.
The curious part will just be like what people charge for it. Like there's stuff that I have right now that I'm like, man, I don't know if that thing's really should be going for that much, but they keep selling, and I'm like, okay, I mean, the market. That's it. The market determines what the market is. If you set something high, that's great, but it doesn't really matter. All that really matters is the sales. So it's really, the comic market is very interesting, especially in the indie market. We've managed to be very consistent and popular in our 12 years of doing business. And part of that is because we have such low print runs, because people don't know who we are. And when they discover it, they're like, oh, okay, let's see what Tom does. And then all of a sudden they realize there's 12 years worth of product to go find. And that just adds more fuel to the collecting fire, because people still want those books. And so, stuff will start to bump up. And again, same thing as far as like the artists, as the artists go on to do more and more stuff besides just, Big Dog Ink stuff. They become more popular, and those books become more popular because people like to collect the old stuff. I love finding old stuff. I just found an Art Adams book that I never knew he even did. And now I think it's called Daring Adventures from Image Comics. And it's like this crazy Houdini cover where he's hanging upside down. There's all these like monsters around him. I'm like, I've never seen this book before. And I love Art Adams. I like to think I follow what he does, but there's an example of me as a fan even missing some of these books. So yeah, it's fun. I mean, collecting is fun, man. We've all been collectors. Everybody that's in the business is a collector in one form or another. And there's nothing wrong with it. Collect what you like, flip what you like, and just have fun with whatever you're doing.
And it's also the idea that I think people now really like collecting early stuff from a company.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
I love collecting early books from companies, and I have some really big dog stuff. And I bought it when you guys were really small, and I bought it undervalued. And there are certain books like a 9.4, certain CGC books from Big Dog Inc. are worth like $150.
Sure.
And I'm not saying a 9.4 is not a bad grade, but it's not a great grade, all things
Yeah,
considering
it's
for a modern
very,
book.
it's a moderate grade. Yeah.
And but now it's like 150 when I bought the book for $25.
Mhm.
And so like I mean we're
Yeah.
talking a CGC book by I think, it's like Wicked Witch of the West Volume 2. And I think it's like Nia Rufino worked on it, and it's a great cover. And it's just like
She's the only artist to work on every issue of The Legend of Oz for us. The only one. Even I didn't write every issue that's there, and it's my book. Um, now I helped plot it, of course, so I was involved. But as far as artists go, she's the only one to work on every single issue, even all the spin-offs. She's done everything. So,
just because
yeah,
it's the Virgin cover that
yeah,
like of number 9, I think. And it's an awesome book. It's an awesome book. And
everything she does is great. She's fantastic. She's fantastic. I was very
it's one of
lucky
those
to
books that
very lucky to meet her and get her involved with. She's been involved with Big Dog Inc. basically since year one. So, yeah, love her.
she's amazing, and the only thing I want from her is I would love a Nia Rufino tattoo, because that thing would be amazing. Just that's a big ask. I mean that's
Oh,
a
you want her to actually do the like on the skin, or do you just
oh
want a
yeah,
knee-eye
I
art?
want on the skin because that's her background.
Sure.
Like because that's something that's like awesome, and I just think it would be sweet. And I'm just petting my dog, everybody. I want to nobody should get any bad ideas here. This is how professional we are on this show. But even going further into this, and then this is what we were sort of talking about, and I think this is it, where this is sort of that scene that's going on with the metal cards,
Mm-hmm.
and they all connect. If
Yep.
you haven't figured it out, they're all connecting with each other, and this
Yeah,
is
and there's that fourth piece to that banner that was behind me, that bottom right. That's Paradox kind of floating in the background. And then that is Schoolgirl on the right. That is Critter's sidekick. So yeah, it was a fun piece. That art's all done by V. Ken Marion. We did that when we were with Aspen Comics. Those were variant covers that they did for the reprint series that Aspen did for Critter. So yeah, 4 pieces all connects together. You've got Critter and Rookie, and then Starlet, and then Paradox and Schoolgirl. V. Ken's done a lot of work for Aspen and a lot of work for DC and so on. So yeah, that's a good piece, and I'm glad I got to do something with it, because those covers are really tough to get, especially in good condition. We've got some sets left, but usually they're kind of the dregs now that they're like 5 years old. So it's been a minute since I've been with Aspen. So it's good to kind of be able to put those back out. And the metal cards are really cool, especially if you have the right type of colors on them, darks and lights. So it almost creates like a 3D sort of effect. Like when we started doing metal covers, actually I had people asking for metal prints first. Many years ago, they were like, "Oh, you can do any metal stuff?" I was like, I no, I'm not doing any metal stuff.
yeah,
But people kept asking. So I was like, okay, let's do a few things for the folks that are asking. So we did a few. We made them very, very limited. We only did like 10 copies or 10 pieces. And when I got them, I was immediately like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand how the metal sort of works with the arts, and sort of creates a different type of image. And then, a few years later, as we got into the comics, the metal prints had become metal covers. And I was like, really? You guys want that too? And they were like, yeah. And I was like,
oh, I love metal covers.
All right. So we did metal covers, and same thing. Like we did them, and I saw them in the, because the prints we did were like 11 by 17. Comics are, comic size. So 10 by whatever. And I was like, okay, so we'll do them. They came in, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And everybody liked them. And so we just kept doing them. So, it's an example of listening to your buyers, your fan base or whatever. Because oftentimes I ask them, I'm like, do you really want this? Like, I'll do it. I'm not telling you no, but I want to make sure that you guys actually want it. versus like, you know, me forcing it on you to be like, hey, we're doing it this way and you have to get it this way. And they're like, no, man, we like this stuff. So that's cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important to some degree to listen to your audience, but I'm also sometimes, and I'm very honest. I've done certain interviews and people are like, I'm glad you did that interview because, we didn't want you to interview this person or we didn't even know this person existed. And so I find the right balance where
Oh
like,
yeah. It has to be a balance. You can't just be like, well, here's the problem too is, and I've had this conversation with people, is people always go on Facebook or social media and they're like, hey, I'm going to ask all my fans what they want for like stuff. And I'm like, that's dumb. You're going to get 100 answers and there's going to be 100 different answers. There's no value there. There's literally no value in just asking the public, like, what do you want? Because everyone's going to have their own opinion. So there's no consensus. You're not going to get like, well, 75 people asked for bookmarks and 25 people asked for this. I'm like, no, that is not going to happen, dude. So what you got to do is just be aware of sort of, in some cases, trends. Like we know that like trading cards and holofoil things, stuff like that, that's sort of your basic easy things. People like them. People like to collect trading cards. All that kind of stuff is cool. But then you kind of have to like take a step up just sort of on your own. Like, well, that's, we did poker chips, right? When we did Penny for Your Soul, we did poker chip because well, it's a Las Vegas book. So let's tie it into the Vegas book. But what was funny was when we started doing books besides Penny for Your Soul, people kept asking, are you going to have poker chips for this one? I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Scheherazade poker chips. There's like no connection there. Like, doesn't matter. They're super cool. And I was like, well, okay. So we've done poker chips for almost everything that we've done now going forward. Princesses versus zombies and all kinds of crap on poker chips. So again, it's just fun. You reach it, you find what's fun for the audience and just keep engaging in that fun. And that's kind of what we've done.
Yeah, I love your poker chips, and it's been copied by everybody. CB Zane did it, and a few other people I know are doing it too now. But I also know that certain people have actually done whole poker chip sets.
Sure, yeah.
Of things, and I think my friend Brett Juliano did it with Dust Bunny Mafia, which is really cool because obviously it's like Mafia, the mob ran Las Vegas. So very, very cool in what he did. But obviously there's a lot of other stuff that's been done with this too. And then even just going further, obviously, just to go through this, and I think we sort of touched upon it, where we got this with brand new cover art, Destiny Calls, and that's sort of like similar to that image. And then this is the whole library where it's the trade paperback and digital options. There's also just a regular, you can just get everything digitally. So if you're a digital reader or you don't want to, you live in like Australia or New Zealand now, which you can't ship to, from my understanding.
Well, we can, but everybody knows it's going to cost you a fortune. So we do have a lot of international people on this campaign.
I don't know if Australia and New Zealand are accepting any packages right now.
You can. They go through phases of non-acceptance, but it's more open than not open. But yeah, you do need to check with that. And usually, however, anybody that's not able to get stuff, usually those people just won't buy anything. Because they know they're hosed. So yeah.
It's kind of crazy because I'm not in that space. Most of what I'm sending out with my Kickstarter is all digital, which is great because I'm selling a digital entity. So my shipping costs are really high, guys. Clearly, a click of an email is expensive today. But I digress. And that's so fitting.
Yeah, Larry's up in Canada, so that's Canada's open, but it's still pricey, unfortunately.
It's also snowy up there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We got a ton of snow today. We got at least an inch, Larry. At least an inch of snow today. It's a disaster here.
I'm in Bethel, Connecticut, and I didn't get any snow. And I'm like, oh, this is great. It's supposed to be like a downpour of snow. I was looking forward to it. I was looking forward to being forced to make hot chocolate and like heat up and like use my fireplace. And I'm now like, it's like 45 degrees. Like, what the fuck? Like, why? It's like there's no good reason for this. Just it's so unfair. It's so unfair, and I'm so devastated. So I hate you Canadians for that. You guys are lucky. You have excuses to like go chop up wood and all sorts of stuff. So, but I digress right there because the other thing,
Corey's in here too. What's up, Corey?
Yeah, Corey's got what Sister Mercy's going on. So that's what's going on with Corey's thing. And unless that thing already passed, but I know he's doing well with his thing. But you got a bunch of other stuff with Critter. Could you open up the vault in a lot of ways?
Yeah, basically I dove into the archive that we have here.
I like this one a lot.
Found, yeah, those are gone. Big
Yeah,
surprise.
that's why I like
Those are
it.
gone. We went in, found a bunch of covers, older covers that we had enough quantity that we could bring them out, stuff that people may not have seen the first time through. And I'm like, yeah, let's give people a chance to get some of this older stuff. Yeah, we've done pretty well with getting some of these things into people's hands. So yeah, a little bit of history, a little bit of Critter history there,
like
as
this
we
one
kind of
too.
go through stuff.
These are two of my favorite comic artists on my list of like 20.
Yeah, that one, Brittany Ears. For those that don't know, part of the story of Critter is that there are parallel dimensions where Critter exists in all these different parallel dimensions. So this one, I had Mike Chrome. I was like, look, let's just do a Britney Spears homage, and we'll call her Brittany Ears. And he was like, yeah, that's awesome. And he crushed that piece. It was so good that when I met him at C2E2 a few years ago, I was like, yo, do you got that original? He was like, yeah. I was like, I'm going to need that. He was like, okay. So I have the original. No, it is not for sale. It's not for sale. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's always a number. There's always a number that makes it for sale. But you're not going to like the number. So it is theoretically for sale, but simultaneously at a prohibitive price point.
It's at a multiple, X factor.
There's a number of zeros behind that number. So yeah.
Because I like that one. I just like Sanjay Navagun's coloring, and
oh yeah,
he's a great colorist, and arguably he's either in the top like 10 colorists ever. That guy
he's
colors
fantastic.
like a motherfucker.
He's fantastic. Yeah, and the great thing about Sanju is that he can color anything. Like if you look at that Mike Chrome piece, like that's a completely different art style than what he normally does with Bill McKay, and he's so versatile in what he can do. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
I mean, in a few hours, in about an hour and like 10 minutes, I'm having Michael D. Pascal on, and he works with Sanju. And the only things that Michael doesn't color, Sanju colors. And it's just one of those things where it's just that's how good Sanju is. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, there's a reason why he was on my show, and he was nervous, and I was nervous too when I interviewed him. So there you go. But it's really amazing, and just there's so much Critter stuff with that, and there are people who might even be back in this Kickstarter just for certain covers.
Oh, sure. No question. That happens all the time in our campaigns. I am fully aware of many people who only back us if we have a specific artist, and otherwise they don't go near us. That's just the way the industry is. It's just the way it works.
And then you also have prints mm-hmm. and I don't have all of them up, but this is a cool one.
That is one of Nihai Rufino's most popular pieces. We did a Las Vegas Comic-Con, yeah, that's never been a print before like that. So we decided to make that as a print.
And then the other one I just wanted to show, because I'm only showing two, is this one. And this one's just like fun, and it's New York Comic-Con, and it's just a nice cover / print.
It's fun to do, really fun to do. The book is impossible to find and super expensive. This is one of those that doesn't come out of collections, or if it does, it's easily $100, easily $100. If not more nowadays, because people collect all those McFarlane homages. We did this back way before it was like every month you saw another one. So people want it, people like it, and they're gone. Last one I sold for $75. So we got the print. It's going to cost you a lot less.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that people collect prints, and obviously people say, look, I can't afford a certain book in a price range, but I can afford a $30, $40 print.
Well, and the print goes on the wall, whereas the comics will go in the boxes, and some people want to be able to, put it up on the wall. And I know there's people that frame their books too, but they get worried about ultraviolet light and all that kind of stuff, fading out the colors. So prints are a great option.
And I know people who they buy a like $5 frame, and they put the frame together, and then they put it up, and then they rotate their prints out.
Oh, sure.
And
absolutely.
It's a lot of fun. And then also people just like putting up things that are cool. And that print in particular is not all that sexual. And I know certain people who say, look, I do consulting and I have my background in comics, and they want a professional looking thing in their background, but they don't want to put, tits and ass on their wall while they're speaking to a client trying to sell them $1 million software. I know people who do that type of stuff. And so this is relatively safe is all I'm going to say. Not that TNA is not bad. I love TNA. But hey,
there's a time and a place for it. There's a time and a place. And we don't really do much of that with Critter. I mean, it's really, Critter really is if you read the book, it's really an all ages book. It's what you would have read in the 70s and the 80s. It's that type of comic book. So it's not puritanical, but it's not like, oh my God, my clothes fell off either. It's just the old, you can see it's just old school style designs, the body hugging suits, whatever. I mean, I've had people freak out that her stomach is showing, and I'm just like, yo, go to the beach. You do not go to the beach. Like, what are you talking about? And then it comes back to like, well, this is not realistic. And I'm like, she's not real, right? Like, none of this is real. This is not a biography of, somebody who lives in California and fights crime. This is not real. None of this is real. Stop it. Stop it.
I mean, it's kind of like, do you really think Starfire is real from the Teen Titans? And like, it's not.
But I blame it on reality TV, because that's when really things started getting ridiculous with, well, Batman should be wearing nothing but armor, and then all of a sudden everybody should be wearing armor because that's what's real. If this guy was really in the streets, he'd be wearing blah blah blah. And oh, if she was really, doing this, she wouldn't have any kind of high heels. And I'm like, yo, have you seen the video of the chick doing backflips in a dress and stilettos? Like, these are superheroes, yo. Just let them be superheroes. They do things that we can't do. That's the point. It's fantasy, guys. Just accept fantasy and stop trying to cram your reality into it. There are comics that can exist with reality. That's their purpose. I get it. 100%. All of that should work. And you can even mold superheroes to realistic stories. 100%. I get it. But the instant you want to worry about Batman and his reality while he's fighting a giant alien crocodile called Killer Croc, like, who the fuck cares about reality anymore? There's nothing that,
Well, it isn't the whole thing. Like, I read comics, and I'm very honest, where I read a lot of comics on Comixology. I get my monthly comics from Midtown, and I don't want to read in reality because reality is hard. Life is hard, in case anybody hasn't realized.
That's right.
And I want to escape. I watch a lot of anime because those worlds, the animes that I like to watch. It's like, I love watching One Piece. I love watching Naruto because I'm trying to escape.
Right. They take you away from what you've been doing. That's the whole, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right.
And so, like, I'm really right now into Dynamite extensively, where I'm reading a lot of Red Sonja, and I just started reading Sheena, and I'm reading Evil Ernie because.
Oh, I can't believe you reread Sonja. I mean, she's running around in a chainmail bikini. That's not realistic.
Don't ruin it for me, Tom. Don't ruin it for me. We've been through this. This is like my entire life. That's the only
real barbarian girl wouldn't wear a bikini chainmail. That's not real.
It's real to me.
Andrew. Jeez. So disappointing. So disappointing.
But I love reading Evil Ernie because Scott Lobdell is one of my favorite writers of all time. And like, I'm reading it because, they suspend reality, and once you buy in, you can enjoy it. It's not that hard. Yeah. But I do enjoy reading Betty Page. Betty Page is enjoyable too. But I love Betty Page for so many reasons, and all the wrong reasons. So feel free to quote me on that, everybody. That'll be on my gravestone.
I love Betty Page. Andrew Davis. I love Betty Page.
But like, that world just suspends it, and I just escape, and I just said, you know what? I'm just gonna buy into their world, and then everything makes sense. It works. It's great.
Unfortunate that there are people, unfortunately, that just can't step out of their own heads. They're so just, life is what life is, and if it doesn't connect with that reality, they can't. They're in that box. They're in that realistic box. And it's a shame. And sometimes it's fun to have the arguments about, what if and how could this happen and whatever. Like, those are fun. But you have to take it back down to the base level of what these superhero, we're talking about superhero comics primarily here, not the ones that are designed to be, you know, real. You have to take it back to this base level of, it's just for fun. It's just fantasy. It's just escapism. It's just, you know, stop thinking about mowing your lawn in heels. You know, it's too hard to mow my lawn in heels. Who cares? Who cares? Just let the superhero mow the lawn in heels. It doesn't matter.
This is what I think. I think too many people have taken things way too personal.
Yes.
And it's just you're overthinking issues. If we're talking about how to solve an energy crisis in real world, that's a complicated issue. But you know what? You know what's not a complicated issue in reality is, how do you just be nice to a woman? It's not that hard, you know. And if you take that same approach to superheroes, it's not that hard to say, well, you know, Starfire can fly and she's walking around in a bikini, and she's walking around in like a one-piece sort of string bikini-ish or a monokini. And it's just like, nobody in their right mind in reality is going to walk around like that, let alone fight in that, because that thing in 5 minutes, if it was real, would be ripped off. In 5 minutes, as she's fighting like, you know, some like villain. You don't think the thing would get ripped off in 5 minutes? Of course it would, but it doesn't, because this is so fake. But you know, as you buy in, that it's not going to get ripped off. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, this isn't hard. It's not hard. It's just,
yeah, real is real and fantasy is fantasy. Understand the difference. That's it. Simple. Piece of cake. And if you don't like it, if you don't like fantasy, I got news for you. There's stuff that isn't fantasy. Go find it. Just leave the people doing fantasy alone.
I don't get it.
It's just like TV. Turn the channel.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel about Kickstarter. You know, haters gonna hate. Is all I'm gonna say. The amount of criticism I get on Kickstarter and pushback in my first week, like, I legitimately just wanted to crawl back into.
There's criticism for everything everywhere. The point is that, like, and again, that's, we talked about this earlier. That's online stuff. Like, people think that they can say anything and be behind it. But I actually see people like, I'm one of them who's gotten ragged on at cons, like live in person, from people who are like, why does she have her stomach showing? That's not, I'm just like, oh my God, here we go again. Are we really doing this again? You know? So it's one of these things where you have to be the duck. Like, you want everyone else to be the duck and just have them see it and have it roll off their back. But the reality is that the creator has to be the duck. The creator has to be like, all right, we're doing this again. Say what you want to say. See you later. And then move on to the people that actually are there for what you want. You have to be the duck.
I figured out how to deal with my troll. And my troll stopped because I dropped a Spice Girl bomb on him.
Spice Girls will win almost any argument, I think.
So he kept going, and then I said, dude, we've been through this. Stop right there. Thank you very much. I need somebody with a human touch. And then I put the song up, and then he just stopped. He had no response, and it was great. And I was hoping he's going to have a response. And all he does now is like the laughing emoji at everything I do. I'm like, oh, cool, man. You're giving me
none of that matters. None of that matters. Just be the duck. That's going to be a shirt. I'm going to make a shirt out of that, a bumper stickers. Be the duck. We'll see how many people understand it. Corey gets it. See, Corey gets it. He knows. Corey gets it. Be the duck. That's going to be my, like, every time I get into these arguments with creators about things and all this, it's like, dude, just be the duck. Just let it go.
Yeah, this is how
it doesn't matter.
Is that if you don't like my show, well, that's cool. You don't have to like my show. I'm doing perfectly fine.
See, look, I just sold a bumper sticker. Corey just bought a bumper sticker from me. Just like that. That's how easy it is to create content, guys.
Well, speaking about ducks, we have to ask the question now. So would you rather fight one giant duck that could be broken up into 20 smaller ducks, or would you rather fight 20 smaller ducks that can form a gigantic big duck? And
we've already seen basically this happen. If you watch Family Guy, you already know how hard it is to fight a duck. I mean, it's a chicken, but you know, it's a giant bird. So it's there's a difficulty level here of fighting giant animals that it's just not easy to do. There's actually a crazy story, and I have to dive into this more. I really want to know more about this. There was a crazy story. I'm going to get this wrong, but basically Australia, the country, the continent, whatever, basically declared war on, I want to say ostriches. It might have been emus, some kind of large bird. And they were like, we have to get this shit under control. And apparently they lost that war. So I would say just leave the ducks alone at all times, because you don't know what you're going to get, man.
The only reason why is that some guy was supposed to interview Conor McGregor, and that was the question that he was going to open up with to Conor McGregor, and it would have been the greatest interview ever. But he didn't get to interview Conor McGregor, and I was so disappointed because I was waiting for that question to be asked, because Conor McGregor would have had the best response ever. It would have been the ultimate meme on Twitter. It just would have ended all arguments. Like that, like 45-second response would just end all arguments, because there's no way you can trump that. No pun intended with anything. But it's just, it would have been great. It would have been so great. But enough about fighting ducks, because I think you and me will lose that war together.
Yes. No, there's no question. There's no question.
And now that I've just created a whole T-shirt and bumper sticker line for you, Tom. Mm-hmm. clearly, you could have it. I got enough things up in my swamp to utilize and deal with, and I will go create my own. You know. But I think it should absolutely be a Big Dog Inc. product, just to make it happen, because I'll be the first one to buy a shirt. Just be the duck.
Be the duck. That's right. Be the duck. That's the ultimate. See, I used to, when I do Comic Cons and I do panels at the end of the show, inevitably someone will ask, "What's your advice for like people trying to get into comics or whatever?" And generally my response, everybody will answer like, they'll be really introspective, like, "Oh, do this, and you should do this, and you should," and then it'll get to me at the end, and I'll be like, "Look, don't be a dick." Like that's literally the answer. Don't be a dick. As soon as you're a dick, people don't want to work with you. So don't be a dick. You can be weird and strange and fun, but as soon as you're just a dick, then no one cares.
See, that's how I view it, is that, is don't be an asshole, don't be a dick, say thank you, be respectful. Yeah. And if you don't act like an asshole, you're going to be fine in comics and in life generally, because people don't want to work with people who are dicks, assholes, and who burn bridges. Because
there's a difference between, this is very specific too. There's a difference between people that come up and like clash from a personality standpoint. That doesn't mean either one of them is being a dick. That's just personalities that clash. Some people can hang with jokes and talking shit and whatever, and other people consider all of that to be like super personal targeting. And it's just like, those people are those are gonna bounce. But legitimately, just slow down, be cool, understand the situation, and you'll be fine. Easy as that.
And also,
it might take time. Don't think it's just going to be a switch that flips and you're suddenly like, a superstar. It's going to take time, but the longer you're in it, the better it'll all get for you.
Yeah, no, it's and also everybody's different, and it's also understanding who you're speaking to. Totally. So I'm not going to speak to somebody who I know briefly a certain way as if I'm going to speak to somebody else. Like I would not ask a first-time guest that question about ducks, for instance. And I'm very honest about it, where this is your fourth or fifth time at this point.
So that's the limit. It's like when you get to show 4, it's the duck questions.
Oh, I mean, this entire season's already started going downhill with episode 1. So season 3.
So you're fine.
Is already going into the gutter.
Everybody gets the duck question now.
So that's going to be the opener from here on out. Every guest who returns is going to get that question first and foremost.
1 duck or 20 ducks?
Which do you fight? But this is so bad. This show's clearly going downhill. We can only go up. We can only go up, guys. Unless we go further down, which is all right too. But I digress, because that's what it is. And there is one more cover that I want to talk about, but it is not a critter cover. And It's not a cover you did, but it's a cover and it's a cover that you might be very happy with. And it's this cover.
Oh, sure.
No, it's Big Dog Inc. related.
Oh, absolutely, it is. 100%
Jeff
it is. Yeah,
Wilson knows I just spoke
that
about it.
is
Commented on my Instagram about it.
Penny for Your Soul. So Penny for Your Soul was the first book we ever did at Big Dog Ink. And when we finished the series, we had to put it back in print with a trade paperback because all the single issues had sold out. So I went and talked to Joe Gisco because I was psychotic and was like, hey, I want to have somebody crazy on my first trade paperback cover. And so of course I talked to Joe Gisco. And he was like, yeah, let's do this. So Joe Gisco ended up doing a cover for us for our first trade paperback. And so what you're seeing is Brink and Fetch. This is Trish and Mike Bengston's Kickstarter campaign for their first ever comic book. That's also live right now, almost funded too. I think they might even be funded. If not, they're within like $80 or something. And so their first comic that they ever got was that book, was Penny for Your Soul trade paperback. And so Mike wanted to, and I guess Trish did too, wanted to homage their first ever trade paperback, or their first ever Big Dog Ink cover, because they've since become fans of Big Dog Ink. They become friends of mine. They come on my live shows sometimes. So they were like, yeah, let's homage Tom and Big Dog Ink with that Penny for Your Soul cover. So there it is. That is available on their Brink and Fetch campaign, which is just about funded, which congratulations to them.
And also, if anybody wants to hear them talking about it, obviously I just cut that up, a piece of that, and put it into my Instagram on a reel, and Steph Wilson just commented on it. So it's very cool. And you could also watch my entire interview with them that went up, I think, earlier this week. So obviously a lot of cool stuff's going on, and really, really fascinating. And Brink and Fetch just looks like a fun book. And obviously that's really cool. There's also a nude version of that if you're interested in that. So obviously if you're more of nudity, I just want to throw some attention to them. Just obviously support them because they're really cool and they support a lot of people. They just threw $1 into my Kickstarter, which I appreciate. So I figured I would mention them really quickly. And it's kind of cool for you, I would imagine, that someone says, hey, I want to do an homage. And they ask permission. I want to make that crystal clear. They did ask permission first.
Well, they didn't tell me what they were doing, but they were like, we want to homage something. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's fine. But seeing it was the first time I'd ever seen it. Like I had no idea what they were actually doing. So, it could have been literally anything, but I finally heard the story behind it. And so I was like, okay, that all makes sense to me.
And so I just think it's really cool. And I think it's, really nice when indie creators pay tribute to other indie books and things that they love. And I think
that comes back to this whole homage thing, right? It's like, there's so much now. Everything is a freaking homage. And I'm like, my God, this is out of control. And I mean, we do them, but we do them very sparingly. And usually when we do them, they're very, very deep cuts now. Like you're never going to see us homage a Todd McFarlane cover again or any of that kind of stuff. We do very, very deep cuts with our homages. Like we just did a Cannonball Run homage over the summer last year, because it was the 40th anniversary for the Cannonball Run. So we did an homage to the Lamborghini Girls with Critter and Blue Jays. So we like to do really deep cuts for homages. And what I tell people doing comics now, their own indie stuff, I'm like, yo, I want to see what you can do that is so good that people want to homage you. I want to see your creativity. I want to see your efforts in branding yourself and your characters and creating your own covers. But I mean, I understand the homages. It's an instant connection to something that somebody else already knows. So they might buy it just because it's a Ghostbusters thing. They might buy it just because it's a, Back to the Future thing, whatever. I get it. There's a reason to do it. 100%. I understand. But it's reached a level of just almost absurdity where it's just everything that comes out is an homage. And, that doesn't, for me as a buyer, I can tell you as a buyer, that doesn't appeal to me. I can look at it and laugh. Like I saw someone do a King Kong one. I was like, smart. No one has done this before. This is great. This is funny. But as a consumer, for me, I want to see next levels for what you guys are doing. And an homage kind of feels like you're pulling it back, latching it onto something older versus driving it forward and really making your product its own thing for going forward. So that's sort of my advice to people that are doing this is I'm not saying don't do homages, but just don't make it like your entire scope of everything. Like with Trish and Mike, so far as I know, that's the only homage cover they have. Everything else is original covers for their product, which is 100%, 100%. And there's some great stuff on there too.
Yeah, I mean they got a bunch of people and they really went all out with their covers. I mean, obviously I like the Steph Wilson because I just like the new school pinup style that
Sure.
Steph does. And I think Chris
Chris Mad is on there. I know Chris Mad did one.
And then David Fraught did another.
David Fraught. Yeah, David Fraught's the one that I pledged for. So yeah.
So I can't think of the others off the top of my head, and it's just been a long day. And
everybody can go see Brink and Fetch. Just look at it.
Yeah.
You can probably just even type Fetch in the search for Kickstarter, and it'll probably pop right up.
And so obviously it's something very, very cool in that regard. I figured I would just throw that because it's a weird story, and obviously since you're here, I figured I'd show and get your.
No, that's great. That's great.
It's awesome, and I love it. And obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with Critter. You're gonna fund. It's clear and it's crystal clear. You're gonna fund, and obviously once you reach a certain level on Kickstarter within your first week or even your first 2 weeks, the likelihood of you funding is off the chart. So we're getting Critter action figures. Us as fans are, and obviously you're at like 23.5. You're probably a little bit higher now, most likely.
We're 23,670, 201 backers. So we're having a good day today. We're having a really good day today. The logistics say that if you are at 33% within your first couple of days of your campaign, your chances of funding are something like 90%. So while we still have quite a ways to go, we also have quite a lot of time left too. So there's plenty of time for people to find the project and push us home.
I mean, that was very helpful where I was at like 64% sort of in, with I think like 18 days left, which was really helpful. And then, I got funded right at the 2-week mark, which is very helpful. So I'm expecting a little bit more money coming in, and hopefully I'll get around 1,000 because that'd be great because that's my first stretch goal. What I'm doing with the podcast and funding that show. But obviously I'm just thrilled that I am funded because that's a good thing collectively. And it's
sure. Absolutely. And that's kind of the freaky part about this campaign is it's like, I'm almost at $24,000 and I'm not funded. It's so bizarre to me because normally at the comics, it's like, yeah, man, we funded this like in day one and we're funded. But this is kind of like I'm stressing, even though, and I have to kind of talk myself down. It's like, no, dude, you got time. You're fine. You need less than 12,000. You're fine. You've got more than enough time to do this. There's more surprises coming. We launched a new art book today as an add-on. So there's art books by by Bill McKay, Sanjay Nivangoon. Their art book launched today as an add-on. So there's more little secrets and fun tidbits happening as we go. So Larry did give me that $1. He's like, oh, you need $1? Okay, here's $1. And he threw $1 in, got us to that 23,000 even. So yes, thank you, Larry.
That's kind of funny. I think that's funny. Maybe I should throw in it.
Yeah, I woke up today and it was 23,000 or 22,999 and then 198 backers. And so I put up a post and I was like, this is cruelty to creators to have us sitting here on $1 and 2 backers for these 2, large milestones. And then Larry threw in $1 and got us to our 23,000 and a backer as well. But now we're at 201 backers. So people are finding us. In fact, the last backer that we just did wasn't even for the toys. It was for, and this is what we talked about. Actually, it looks like he added a toy on. No, he didn't. So here's a guy who didn't even buy the toy, but he bought all of the comics, all of the trade paperbacks set, and then he bought 2 prints, and he bought 1 of the art books. So he didn't even buy the toy, but he came in and dropped, $160 on comics and art. So, thank you, because that's fantastic. Even though he's not buying the toy, he's supporting the toy, generally speaking, but he's supporting Big Dog Inc. He's supporting Critter. And we appreciate that as much as those that are just diving into the toys. So there's no right way to support indie comics and Kickstarters. Just go find something that you like and throw $10-$20 at it if you want.
Hey, I mean, look, there's been a bunch of people who have thrown just money at me without any pledge, and that's appreciated. So I appreciate all sorts of stuff. And obviously, you got a lot going on with Critter. You got a lot going on with a bunch of other stuff from Big Dog Inc. I know you're fulfilling on totally, Camp Rad Dog is coming. I think the third Oz book is coming.
Yep.
I know you got something with Dynamite, but I'm not going to press you on that too much because
everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's
a whole different podcast. That's a whole different show.
Yes, I don't have information on the release yet, but that's already known knowledge that I've written a Bad Kitty book for Dynamite. The art's all done. CB Zane is done. Colors are happening. So it's really just them putting it on their release schedule, and then we'll tell everybody what to do.
I think they're trying to get through Karma first.
They have a Kickstarter happening right now. Yes. So it'll probably be late February, maybe early March.
Yeah. Dynamite's got a lot of stuff moving. So I don't think they're too pressed where I think they just want to get through one at a time.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They just haven't told me. So as soon as I know, you guys will know.
So obviously there's a bunch of stuff, but where can people find Critter? Where can people bother you? Where can people go and watch your live comic sales and all sorts of stuff and all the stuff that's going on? Because you got a lot of pieces moving and people want to know when all this shit's dropping.
So basically, I mean, I live basically on Kickstarter. So most of what we do comes here first. So find me here on Facebook, either Tom Hutchison or go to the Big Dog Inc. fan page. You can do that too. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. So that's BDI Comics for both of those. We have a Patreon page, patreon.com/Big Dog Inc. And I do on Facebook, if you're a Facebook member, I do a live selling show every Wednesday and every Sunday on a group called the Comic Book Shopping Network. So if you're on Facebook, go look up Comic Book Shopping Network, CBSN, find the group, and join the group. And it's basically like the Home Shopping Network, right? So it's basically every day, it's just hour upon hour upon hour of people selling comics. Some of it's new comics, some of it's old comics. Some people sell toys, some people sell, trading cards, whatever they want, they can sell. So I do 2 shows a week, Wednesday and Sunday night. So feel free to come jump in and, have a little fun.
Yeah, and then also a bunch of other people do stuff there. Some people just do drawing and a variety of other stuff happens.
Yeah, well, we have I started the sister group called the Artist Alley Shopping Network here on Facebook as well. So we have somebody pretty much every day, 1 or 2 people at least a day over on the Artist Alley Shopping Network, drawing live and selling their comics and so on as well. So yeah, there's that.
So there's a lot of stuff going on with you, and you're pretty accessible pretty much on the internet, wherever you're at.
Yep.
You answer me pretty quickly.
Well, mostly Facebook. I mean, it's so easy to just send me a message. I'm probably on my laptop because I'm either writing or I'm doing something, ish wise, that if you send me a Facebook message, it's going to go ding and I'll be like, who's that? And I'll be like, okay, I'll message back. So super, super easy. But if you're on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, you can get a hold of us through there too.
And so that's something just to keep in mind. And if you're looking for something with obviously Critter, this action figure, I'm sure that you can accommodate somebody. Somebody has a comic book store. I'm sure you could figure something out with everything that's going on. And I don't think anything is not work outable in this realm, either, on Kickstarter or off Kickstarter, or combination, or figuring out a system or tier that works for everybody.
We deal direct with a lot of stores. So if any stores have questions about how to get the figure or how to get comics, just shoot me a message and we can work it out. We deal direct all the time.
And then obviously, I'm just going to say this and I'm going to keep saying it. You have to back indie. So this action figure cannot happen without Kickstarter. And it can't happen without people pledging. And whether you're pledging for the graphic novel, you're pledging for art prints, all that stuff helps to benefit it. And so in order to support indie, you have to back Kickstarters. And you have to support creators and what they're doing. And the way you do that is that you actually pledge. And no amount of money is too small. And if you buy multiple, that just helps further this go on.
Well, and one thing that's really important, particularly with Kickstarter here, that I think a lot of people still don't understand. because we see it all the time. People wait till the end, and there's really no reason to wait. And this is why. The way that Kickstarter works is you pledge for an item. It's basically a pre-order, right? They're going to say, hey, we're doing this. We're going to release it in 6 months, whatever it is. You pledge for it. You're not getting charged. Your credit card is not being charged when you pledge. You're only going to be charged. You're only going to be charged if the campaign funds. All right. So if we launch on January 1st and we don't end till January 31st, there's no reason to wait for the 31st to see what's there, because you can pledge, help the algorithm. I hate that word, algorithms, but it's the truth. Every pledge is like a like. It helps the campaign fund faster. It helps the campaign be seen by more people, and you won't get charged if by some craziness the campaign doesn't fund. It just doesn't happen. You just are not charged. So there's no reason not to just dive in, have some fun with it. You can always change your pledge mid tier. If there's something else that gets added on, you can always change it. If you want to go up higher, you want to go lower, just get in right as these things start, because that's how the algorithm pushes it to the top so that more eyeballs can see it. That's the super important part.
Yeah, it's very helpful. And, I get a lot of likes on Facebook, and, certain people I wish would pledge early. And even if you just pledge $1, because you could always change, your position. And if you're uncertain, because sometimes what's going on with me, and I'm very honest, is that I don't know what my finances look like in February. And certain things are happening. That's why I'm not so gung-ho on pledging. And in about a week, I'm going to have a better understanding. And so I hold off on certain Kickstarters for that reason, because I don't know what's going on in the next week, because I don't know if I'm having a bill hitting me.
Sure. Oh yeah, no, I get it. I mean, listen, I understand that there's reasons people hold back, but what I hear a lot of is they think that they're getting charged like on the spot. And so they'll wait a week to pledge, because they think they're getting charged at that moment. So there is a gap of time before you'll get charged, unless you're at the end anyway.
That is true. That is true. And I wish more people would do that. So obviously that's something that I think people would really need to do. And as I was even going further, obviously I want people to pledge to you, because if all of a sudden you're at 30,000, a lot more people are seeing it. It also takes out massive stress. I could tell you the fact that I am funded on my Kickstarter, I'm not slowing the brakes, but it's also, I'm significantly less stressed out.
Of course. Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm only $14 over, which is not where I want to be, but I know for a fact that I'm a little bit less stressed out. And now I feel like, hey, I'm fully funded, guys. We're just running with it. And we're going to see what happens now. And my goal is to get to 1,000. But if I get to 900, I'm still funded.
Yeah,
it's just, I'm less stressed out now. And I wasn't ultra stressed out, but it's still nerve-wracking when you go into a Kickstarter, no matter what you say.
If I would really love to be at 25,000 by tomorrow, which is only $1,300. It just feels like for us, it's such a big number that once you're like 10,000, 9,000, 8,000, like it's such a better number structure than 17, 16, 15. Like, God damn, I don't know if we can do this. But once you're sort of like counting down from 10, it feels a lot better and a little more exciting too. It's like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Oh, we're there. So it's fun. It's fun.
That's how I felt when I was at like 613, and I was only like 100, and I was less than like 150 away. I'm like, oh man, I'm close now. But I digress. So obviously, as I was stating, you got to support indie. You got to throw your money in. And let's say you only got $25. You could pick up a metal card set. You could pick up a graphic novel. You can just throw $5 in with no pledge, and that's helpful because every little bit helps. And so that's something just to keep in mind, everybody. And then I'm going to promote myself too, because I might as well. Obviously, if you're printing a book and it's your first outing out there, use Mixum. Drop my name in Davis, 5% off. But more importantly, I like to have my comics arrive perfectly. And BCW Supplies, you get 10% off your order if you drop Pop Anime Comics as a code, and 10% is a big number. And that's an affiliate link, so I get commission backwards. So obviously bags, boards are expensive, and BCW Supplies is pretty good at it. But think bags and boards at them are like $16 and $14, and things are getting expensive, guys. And then also feel free to check out my Kickstarter because every little bit helps. A dollar goes a long way, and I appreciate it. But if you want to throw me even more money, I appreciate that too. And so that's my shit, and everybody can go promote that. And then I'm gonna give you the final word.
Oh, that's it. I mean, we've given them all the words. We appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. This is really more than just a Kickstarter campaign. It's more than just we're making toys. It's a moment in time for this entire company and everybody that's worked so hard over 12 years to make this type of a moment happen. FICO Ocio was our series artist for so long. He's moved on to IDW and so on. He helped make Critter what she is. But we've had so many people doing art for us for so long to really, again, make Critter what she is, that this is really a moment for all of us to kind of be proud of. And I can't thank all of those artists and all of our fans enough for 12 years of supporting Critter and helping us as Big Dog Inc. reach a point where something this large scale is possible. And you've got 3 weeks. 3 weeks from today, we lock it down. So there's plenty of time to check out the campaign and decide what you might want to try out, whether it's the comics, whether it's the toy. It's all good. We really appreciate it.
And I think that's a wrap.